The balancing act is back. It's the first time in 2 months. We took a little break there. Uh, I thought about getting other friends of mine to try to substitute in for James, but ultimately it came down to even my open-minded friends, um, who I do feel like are as deep or are on the same level consciously as James and I. It's still not the same as when James and I have these discussions. There's a certain chemistry. The dialogues that we have. There was a reason why I asked him to be my co-host. And over the past couple of months, as if you're an avid listener, you already know he's living out in the country right now, and he's had some internet issues. Um, so it's been a struggle for him to get his internet back working. As some of you or many of you may know, I'm a father. TJ had Christmas break, and then there was a snowstorm at the end of Christmas break. So he got an extra week out of school. So we've been busy with other things, living life, but um, that's also allowed me to come up with a lot of different ideas as far as the direction that I want to take this. In the meantime, I've really been working on our YouTube channel. Um, been dropping clips every 3 days since Thanksgiving or a little bit before Thanksgiving. I'm really going to start to try to drive all of our listeners to my YouTube page. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen right now. The YouTube page has gone from 0 to 61 subscriptions in the last 2 months, which if anybody that's listening is one of my subscribers, I super appreciate you for doing that, for checking me out. This is the channel here. These are my playlists. So I've got playlists that I've created. Our story is kind of like more like James and I specifically, our story literally, but also just more personal in general. There's the Human Vibration series. She's been on twice. Alison McDowell series. A lot of the stuff on there are other clips from other podcasts that I just felt were really crucial and impactful for me when I listened to them. I also put together a Waking Infinity playlist. Ben Stewart does a Waking Infinity news that he posts on YouTube, and you can go to his channel and see all of them, but I have my favorites here in one playlist. I've also got an abbreviated episodes playlist. Those are for clips that are a little bit more than 15 minutes. Full episodes. There's only 6 of them on YouTube, but there's 6 of the best episodes that we've done. And then there's the clips, which are the shorter, 15 minutes or less, or 20 minutes or less for sure. And basically all of these playlists, all of these videos, I was talking to my dad about it the other day. For the most part, I want to drive everybody to the YouTube channel. If you're somebody that likes to listen to the full podcast, definitely still check out the Spotify, the Google, the Apple podcast, whatever you like to listen to your podcasts on. But in this world of ADD, attention spans, and all of us, even the ones that might not have ADD, I feel like all of us do in this internet age. But
it's inevitable.
Even if you do have a very good focus, you're probably a busy person if you have that kind of focus. So I've broken. I told my dad it's the director's cut. YouTube is the director's cut of the balancing act. This is all of my favorite clips. And as the person who edits our podcast, I'm the one listening to our material 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And so the clips on YouTube, the stuff I've put on YouTube is the stuff that I, as a listener, like to listen to. It's the creme de la creme of what we've put out so far. So just wanted to say that to drive everybody to my YouTube page. Check it out. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share, all that stuff. And I appreciate the ones that have already done that. Now, in this age of censorship, which is going to be one of the topics for today's podcast, YouTube is known for censoring certain material that they don't like. And as far as I'm concerned, it's their platform. They can do what they want, and I'm grateful for what they do allow me to put on there. And there are other platforms for clips and videos that YouTube removed. So I did start a BitChute account. You guys can check me out on BitChute, just the balancing act. You can find me on minds.com as well as Rumble. Between those 3, I probably like BitChute the most. But you can find me on all three, and anytime YouTube rejects one of my videos, I'll be putting them on there. For today's episode, we've got a lot of stuff that I want to talk about, 2021 recap. And then, what makes this podcast different from other conspiracy or conscious podcasts? That's one thing I really want to focus on. And the one thing that I know that we can bring that's going to be different than any other podcast is our story, which is why I have a whole playlist about our story. And that's something that I always emphasize with anybody. I feel like whether you're a podcaster or not, sharing your story, refining your story, refining your worldview, these are important things to think about. And so it's just themes that I like to emphasize on the podcast, so to speak. And again, I just encourage everybody to, if you want to start your own podcast, if you feel like you've got something to say, do it. Me and James, one thing that I'm going to do today, I'm all about gratitude. I think gratitude is one of the most potent medicines, and I have a lot of people that I'm thankful for, a lot of ideas that I'm thankful for. So I'm going to spend some time on this podcast talking about all the people, documentaries, pieces of art, musicians that I'm thankful for that have had an influence on my life. I've asked James to put together some stuff in that same category, so he'll be doing some of that himself. As far as I don't want to go too much into like a 2021 recap, because you can type in 2021 recap and look at all the news stories from 2021 if you want to do that. But just one thing that I wanted to mention, this podcast started out as alienation. The whole idea behind that was that technology is putting us in a place where all of us feel a little bit more alienated. And I feel like what I want to do, the purpose of me starting this podcast was to start building community. And although that is a frustrating and damn near impossible task, because it feels like one bad apple can hurt a community. Not that that's happened with us or anything like that. But when it comes to this like idea of community building, I do see how it can be a struggle when not everybody's worldview is compatible, which is why I emphasize worldview so much on this podcast as well. I do feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but one thing I wanted to say was alienation. The last episode we did was April 7th, 2021. Took a little break, and the first episode of the Balancing Act was June 9th. So that was a 2-month break, just like we're coming back from a 2-month break right now. Outside of that, that's pretty much all I got. Like I said, check out the YouTube. That's really where I want to drive all of the listeners, is to the YouTube. That's, like I said, the director's cut of this podcast or platform, whatever you want to call it. If you're the type of person that enjoys full podcasts, still listen to me on Spotify, listen to me on Apple Podcasts, that's awesome, and I appreciate that as well. But there are going to be clips and more visual videos, and I'm going to be doing a lot on YouTube. That's going to be my primary platform, is the point of what I'm saying right now. Outside of that, a couple of topics that we're going to get to today. Censorship, as I already mentioned, we're going to have a discussion on that. And then I also wanted to talk about controlled opposition. As I was making my list of influential people, I realized that there's a lot of people on here that the conspiracy community is going to be, oh, they're controlled opposition. And maybe that's true, but we're going to talk about that. That. So I've said enough, man. What do you think about everything I've said so far?
Well, I think, as always, well, to be honest, you started out, I think the first thing you touched on was a 2021 recap. So to stay within that same light, one thing I would say, thank you for having me along on this journey with you, G. I mean, I know it's our journey together in a sense, but you have been well, I guess I'm giving my flowers out too. But anyway, you've been great at just kind of keeping me reeled in. I've had some, life changes as, caused me to move down to the country and, kind of switch up how I've been living my life for the past 8 to 10 years. So You've been great and having therapy sessions with about that, a lot of that stuff, and also just being an anchor for this pod and this vision of what you're trying to do, of what we're trying to do. And you know, I've had setbacks with internet and other issues, and you've been really an anchor and pushing through with me, and also picking up the reins in a lot of areas that I haven't been able to really put my fingerprint on quite yet. So um,
Hell yeah.
so
Before you got
2021 recap for me would just be the change in coming back to my hometown and getting back to some of the roots that I missed and loved, but also still adjusting, you know, for a while was still adjusting to that sort of change. But that would probably be the biggest recap for me in 21, other than some other life things, you know, continuing to grow mentally, continuing to grow with everything in this post-COVID or
new normal.
new norm, if you want to, yeah, exactly. But I think that would probably be the biggest one as far as a recap, without getting into a whole list of recaps. But I
Well,
think that would,
one thing you said there that I meant to say is
uh-huh.
you called this a therapy session. And that was when I originally started this podcast. One of the 4 or 5 main tenets came from what was mental health in general, but
Right.
specifically a book called Lost Connections, written by Johan Hari. And I'm going to talk about him a little bit later when I'm giving out my flowers.
Oh yeah, you brought him up a
Um,
lot. Yep.
but you know, that was the whole point of this. Is
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't going to be just me and you. I want to get everybody I've ever been friends with on this
Mm-hmm.
podcast. And these are therapy sessions. This is an opportunity. This is a platform where anybody that I know, you know, yeah, I've had Alison McDowell on. Yeah, I've had Human Vibration. Yeah, I've had Conspiracy and Ben Stewart. And I do plan to get high profile guests like that on. But that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast
Mm-hmm.
is a therapy session for me, first and
Right.
foremost,
First and foremost.
for you as my
Yeah.
co-host, as the person that I was like, this is the guy that I have the best chemistry with. I'll call him out. I love A-Dubs. That's my boy. That's my homie. But
Mm-hmm.
when we have conversations, it's like it's not the same. It's like, I don't know, man. I don't know if he's camera shy, or when the record button starts, he starts going off on tangents. And anyways, I love him, but I feel like he needs to start his own podcast so he can kind of refine how he
His
expresses
flow, his
himself.
cadence. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I certainly have a lot to work on, but as I've
Oh, me
listened to
too.
myself from episode 1 to our most recent episode, I do feel like I've improved quite a bit.
Yeah.
My biggest
You-
thing is I need to stop interrupting you and LT.
Dude, I need to stop interrupting. You know what? You know, I listen to a lot of pods, and I listen to a lot of pods that I feel, I mean, these guys have been doing sports talk radio for so long that they're good. They're natural with it. And I try to listen and take tidbits from them. And one thing I realized, yeah, like the co-host, because I got one guy who has his co-host on every Tuesday and Thursday. They do a good job of not interrupting each other, you know, not stepping over each other, not interrupting each other. And even the little things when you're talking and I'm like, yeah, you know, let you get your piece out, and then I can chime in. And that's one thing that I know I've got to get better with. That I've been looking at, going back and looking at some of the stuff that you've been posting on YouTube and listening to podcasts. Yeah, I've been taking my own notes too. So
Definitely. And I just wanted to emphasize, like, that's what I feel like. Because if you want to get into that conspiracy research, you know, there's tinfoil hat, there's conspiracy, there's the higher side chats, there's these podcasts are out here for that material. Human Vibrations on Patreon. We're not researchers, you know,
no.
we're out here, we're taking these other researchers that we like and that we
Mm-hmm.
feel moved by, and that we feel impacted by, influenced by, that have
Right.
impacted our worldview in a positive way or in a significant way, whether
Right.
positive or negative. And so that's not what this podcast is. This podcast, I'm not going to give you the deep dives, the heavy research. That's, you know, Ben Stewart does a great job with all that stuff as well. And part of this podcast is what we're going to do today is direct people to the podcast and the influencers and the musicians and the documentaries and all of that influenced us and that impacted us in a positive way, so that other people can go check that stuff out as well. But the centerpiece, the purpose of this podcast is to be a platform that is therapy for people that have something to say that they feel like they can't really express in their everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And just to add to that, they're there is, to compliment what you were saying, there is some research, deep dives. I would like to call it. There are topics that come up. There are things that happen, and we'll take certain deep dives in on it. Research and information. But what G is saying is that there are people who dedicate their life, their research, their the things that move them to getting that, compiling that research and information and data and presenting it to you in a sense, through sources and through so many other things. We're more of that. Those things, a lot of those topics are going to come up. We're going to touch on them. We're going to hash on them. We're going to all of that stuff. But there are folks out here who, to be honest, I don't even want to get the credit for where that particular idea or understanding in something came from, when we can point you to the horse's mouth, and allow you to do your own methodical research and understanding of certain topics. Because just getting the information from someone, sometimes, a lot of times, it's in one ear and out the other, and I know for you and I know for me, our journey, a lot of it started with going down rabbit holes, reading, research, books, listening to folks, but then after listening to them, taking our own deep dive on the information, so we can have a better understanding of it ourselves, to be able to even begin to be able to speak on it. So just wanted to piggyback off of what you were saying there.
Yeah, man. So I think we've kind of covered the intro. One topic that I already mentioned we were going to bring it up, is censorship. What are your thoughts on the current state of censorship? Do you think there are any scenarios where censorship is warranted or beneficial? Yeah, what's your thoughts on censorship? And then, specifically social media censorship and, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, this sort of
It's a great question. It's a great
phenomena.
topic. It's a great question. It's a great topic, G. I think where I want to start with that is by saying, regardless of where this conversation goes, as far as personal thoughts on is censorship good or not, one of the things that I've learned, G, people are still starting to learn and understand me, but G, me, and one of the things is that one of the things I love to do, I love to take a step back, and I like to see these different situations and scenarios and things play out. And the reason why is because there are so many things that I feel can be used for good when it comes to, hey, let us tell you why we need to do it this way. The problem is that what I've noticed along my journey is that those things, it's like giving a mouse a piece of cheese. He's going to come back for the whole slice next time. It's like, okay, sure, entity that wants to censor, there of course are good reasons for certain things maybe being looked at or rehashed that could be detrimental, or that could be just really not in good light for humanity, or for kids, or for...
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you want to see a terrorist beheading on Twitter.
Exactly. There's a time and a place for it. The problem is that we all know how this works. In our community, we know how this works, right? Like, okay, it starts with a little bit. Next thing you know, it starts with a word, then it's a sentence, then it's a paragraph. Next thing you know, it's the whole damn thing, right?
It's anything that doesn't fit the narrative.
Doesn't fit the narrative.
We talk about narrative all the time.
And G, it goes that way with a lot of things, right? It's like, yeah, of course, I can understand why this could be good if it was used for good. But most of the time, when we follow the money, when we follow the companies, when we follow the names of the bloodlines that own, run, manage, delegate, whatever the case is, there's a lot of foggy and grayed out areas in these things. So to get back to your question, after making that preference, what I'm getting at is, you're asking, is it good for a multi-billion, gazillion dollar company who is one of, we're talking, they call consulting firm the big four. Well, there's the big 4 or 5 of tech too. And I would say that some of these entities are obviously the mainstream ones are in it, and we just know how given an inch can turn into a mile with things like that. So the state of censorship right now is really interesting, and I think it took its sacrificial introduction when they completely just shunned Trump and just tossed him to the side. I feel like there was a whole new pivot in censorship there. And from there, started the man, even if you start to type something that doesn't fit the narrative now, a warning or a prompt will pop up and say, hey, you should probably double check this. And they're telling you that because it's like, listen, we already see where you're going with this, and we're probably going to scratch it. So we're giving you an opportunity to maybe reword this. That's the stuff that I'm talking about, that when you're starting there, where are we going to be in 10 years? Where are we going to be in 20 years? As machine learning continues to evolve, algorithms continue to be even smarter. Literally, I feel algorithms nowadays know the narrative. And if something in its ecosystem is not fitting that, it will pinpoint it and it will go get it.
I mean, yeah, yes, there's a lot of that, especially if you already have a large following.
Well, and that's what I was going to get to.
And people like me, they'll let more slide because they know it's not getting that many views.
Of course, but everyone wants growth. Everyone wants to scale, whether it's a podcast, a Twitch account, a social media, whatever. And as you start to grow and scale, the thought of knowing that you're more targeted in the sense of censorship is a little alarming, and it is a problem, especially when you see the things that are censored. So we can have, certain things being shown on social media entities that we're like, come on, seriously, we're going to show this such and such on here doing this, but yet, questioning something might make your account get deleted or suspended. We see it all the time, especially in the community that we're a part of and that we interact a lot with. We see it all the time, whether it's getting the comments cut off, the retweets cut off, or the account suspended altogether. And a lot of the times, it's not even for stating what is considered fact. It's for just bringing up a topic or questioning or asking something that will make you think or research in a different direction. And that is, I feel, a serious problem. And it's only getting, like I said, I feel like the Trump thing was the big, they always align it with something that it catches the masses' attention. Oh man, they kicked Trump off. And then comes all this information from Twitter and other other entities that are telling you why they did it. And basically how this is the norm moving forward if you choose to move in that direction, in a sense. And I mean, people who listen to us, and you've heard me say this a lot, G, a lot of these things that, because there's a philosophy, there's a psychology to it where it's like, hey, even if the masses don't want to do what we want them to do, we're going to edge them along. We're going to almost do things that's going to make them say, hey, we need your help now because we can't fix this problem. And they'll drill you right into that. And one way of doing that is having someone that they consider a loose wire like Trump or anybody else with an opinion or of their own, or something that doesn't fit the narrative to cancel them, in a sense. And I do think that's alarming because at this point, who's even monitoring this stuff, right? It's the algorithms, it's the technology, it's the AI. So when you have something coded to do something, at some point it's going to do its job. And how many more dystopian movies do we need to see about where that usually takes us into the future? Listen, I'm not saying it's obviously there's certain things that are good about it, but I always, as you know, G, I like to bring the other side of it because I see how these things work. You
The
know,
cynical side.
the cynical side, the more pessimistic side.
In a minute here, I'm gonna provide the optimistic side, but I'm
Yeah,
gonna let
no,
you
and
finish.
I do know obviously there's an optimistic side to that, but you know, as much as technology has advanced in our personal lifetime, we're just scratching the surface on where this is going. And
I agree.
with the movies, the different
Well, that's why I think it's imperative that as human beings, we need to speak up. We need to use our voice, regardless of who you are. Once you start self-censoring, that's when you're done.
But see, these things that these things, these softwares, these algorithms, these
I understand
filters,
I understand where you're going with it, James.
they
But
drive
there's the
people
other
to want to self because you're thinking to
there's the
yourself,
other
damn.
side of that. There's the other side of that where it's like maybe we've reached a point in society where everybody is so lazy that we need this kind of push for censorship just to see who's got the balls to speak up, who's got a soul. It's kind of yes, I understand your side, your point, the cynical aspect of anything, any free thinking, anything. Yeah, but here's the thing, they're not censoring me.
They're not censoring you because we don't have 1 million followers yet.
Oh, I know that.
Now let's revisit this conversation.
But here's the thing, James. But that's my point. But that's my point. Actually, that's kind of my point, though. Is I think that celebrity worship is actually one of the real pandemics. Is nobody wants to do that inner work themselves. They want Joe Rogan to tell them.
Of course.
They want Donald Trump to tell them. They want any of these people that we're going to have a discussion on controlled op here in a minute too. We're going to get to that. There's plenty of opportunities I've already had to segue into it, but I really want to wrap up the censorship part of it before we get into the controlled op part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, I think there is an optimist. All right, so first of all, let me start from the center. The more and more we go into this matrix, the more I see how everything really is perfect, how only perfection exists. It's something that McDowell talks about, and we talked about it in one episode where I was saying like the worse things get, the better that I feel, because it's just vindicating everything that I've been saying. It's making the voice that I've been using for the last 10 years, it's making that look like this guy's, he might be off sometimes, but he's never bullshitting. He's never lying. He might be wrong, but he's telling what he really thinks is the truth. There's no deception there. He might be wrong, but he's not trying to deceive. And I've been deceived enough in my life to where it's like, my worst enemy, I'm going to square up to him. I'm not going to deceive him. You know what I mean? Deception is just not my game. I'm just not down with that. But to get to the censorship thing and why I think it's actually perfect is like, I think that they don't want a solid scientific argument showing why the COVID narrative is false. They're forcing people to do one of two things. You can go down the path of being our slave, getting vaccinated and listening to us no matter what we say, or you can take that other route, but you're going to have to be strong. You're going to have to prove, you're going to have to prove that you're not going to ever self-censor. And it's kind of like, I kind of like it because it's separating the weak from the strong, and maybe it's time for that.
It is. I just you make a good point, G, but my thing is always, who the fuck are you to play God all the time?
But is it
unless you are God? Are you God?
These are, YouTube is a private company, and I understand what you're saying.
Listen, I get all of that.
They have a large sphere of influence, so I understand where you're coming from. But like what Ben Stewart does, his model, and I think this is brilliant, is he posts what he feels YouTube will not censor on YouTube. And then he does what he calls deeper dives, and he posts that on his website. You got to go to his website to get the
And
videos that he feels are too, he doesn't want to test YouTube.
yeah, of course, and that's
That's a
what
good formula.
that's a good formula, and that's what adaptive people have to do. Like, yeah, I crush on certain entities all the time, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I don't use them. I do. But you're right. It's about knowing how to play. It's about knowing how to play the game, right? So we know that, okay, yeah, we can grow our following on YouTube, but when we get to certain tiers, we might have to move that over to a Patreon or something, or a website
BitChute
or
or something.
something like that. And
Website,
that's
yeah.
okay. That's okay. But to answer your question, for what the question was, when it comes down to censorship, you know, that is that's the question at hand. I mean, soon we're going to have to start separating, internet ecosystems here, because I feel like the truth is going to live on a more of a blockchain internet, and then you're still going to
Oof.
have all your Web 2 internet, which is super censored, super filtered, and I guess that's fine
But
if
you
that's.
don't, you don't think that blockchain will be super censored and
I
super
think
filtered?
blockchain. I think blockchain will be censored, but here's what you got to remember: they still are trying to get people to believe that the blockchain is super. What we want the blockchain to be, they still have to start at least with having people believe that that's what the blockchain is,
Oh,
or what the hell is the point of
yeah.
the blockchain?
I mean,
So I think for a while, like anything else, like when the internet first started, the internet was wide the hell open too. So I think for a while it will be wide open, but yeah, it's not going to be forever. Of course not. No, no.
yeah, no, I mean,
But
yeah. Alison McDowell. Anybody who wants to know more about the blockchain, I just
please
recommend
do.
checking out the Alison McDowell podcast that I did with her. But I also have a playlist where I put some clips on there from other podcasts that she's done that are just really to the point.
Very to the point. And listen, she does such a great job of presenting the information, and it's and a
She's
lot of
got the
it.
receipts, bro.
She's got the receipt that you can listen to her, and by the end of you listening to her, you'll be able to go do some homework. You have no excuse.
I
No
mean,
excuse
bro,
to
there's
notice.
no other guest that I've had on, including Ben Stewart, including Human Vibration, where that person changed my mind
I know, I
on
know, I
a
know
on
she
a
did.
topic
That
that is important, that is
I know.
significant in this, in
It
today's world.
is.
I mean, I was pro crypto. I was on board with crypto. And then, I mean, she made it very clear that the whole currency part of blockchain, the cryptocurrency part of it, has nothing but a Trojan horse to get
Mm-hmm.
everybody on the blockchain, to get
Mm-hmm.
your biology, your
Mm-hmm.
cellular DNA, all of that is going to be blockchain data for a global prison. And
Yeah, that's
we're
true though.
digital identities. The blockchain is not about money. It's about putting every transaction,
In one ecosystem.
every human transact, all human behavior, your whole life will become
Yeah.
gamified when you go on, if they can get people into the blockchain, which I am
Which
a little.
they are you kidding me?
No, I'm optimistic.
They
I'm optimistic. I don't think that they're
G
going to pull off what she thinks.
G G. Come on, G. You gotta G. At some point though, look, G.
Oh, no, it's happening. No,
Yeah,
it's
I'm like, what are
happening.
we talking about? The
It's
metaverse is
happening, but
coming.
are they going to get everybody on it?
Not today, not tomorrow, but when your kids that have only grown up with a damn face mask on their face and understanding crypto from the time they're 3 years
Toddlers. Yeah,
old,
no, I know. Yeah.
yes, they're all going to be on it. When you know what? When we are my dad's age,
I
and
think
my
we've got
dad is
this.
sitting
This
back
is
like,
something. This is the hill to die on, though, James. I mean,
what's that?
I
Hell to die
mean,
on with what?
the blockchain, like, I get, and Allison even says, I get that there are local use cases and certain ways of setting it up where it could be beneficial, but the larger global infrastructure that's being put in place to allow crypto
Yes,
to
of
be a
course.
thing is destroying the planet. It's
It
destroying
is.
biological life in general. It's literally, it's taking what has been the colonization of black and brown people, and black, and it's not even about black and brown people. It's about black and brown and white cultures
Mm-hmm.
that did not live a totalitarian agriculture lifestyle. And what I mean by totalitarian agriculture is we wipe out any animal that does not fit on our food chain. We used to call it a food chain. We are starting to wake up a little bit. That's why it's called a food web now. It's why we're introducing the wolf back into Yellowstone National Park. It's why there's laws against killing coyotes now. But the reason farmers had wiped out coyotes and wolves and any other animal that didn't directly contribute to our food chain, but that also hurt our food chain by killing livestock and crops. I mean, everything was human centered in our worldview for so long that that's the colonization life. That's the colonization mindset, is all of this world is ours because of manifest destiny, because God said so, which is bullshit to me. But that it's taking that colonizing mindset of we're going to colonize the whole world to and we're going to grow food for us, and all of the animals that we raise are going to be livestock for us. Everything is based around food supply for humans, you know. That's our whole economic system has been based on, which is changing, hopefully for the good. But my point in saying all of that is that colonizing mindset is now, we've taken over the whole world. This Caucasian totalitarian agricultural mindset has already colonized the world. So what's next? Now you got to colonize the human being.
Yeah.
Our biology, our behavior. And that's what the blockchain is really about. The reason that it's being marketed as cryptocurrency to liberate you from central banking is to get people like me who think that's a good idea.
I know.
I don't want to say stupid people, but people that are looking for big change.
Right.
And anti-central banking people, and it's a Trojan horse. That's the best. I think that the way that Alison puts that is a Trojan horse. That's it. That's what the cryptocurrency aspect of blockchain is. It's to make people think that blockchain is something that is going to help you.
Of course. But what? Okay, so yes. You know, it's like knowing the truth to many things that we consider ourselves to know the truth to. But then what the masses are going to say.
But that's just where I stand right now too. Like I was pro crypto. I could be wrong now. Crypto could end up saving us. You know, I doubt it based on Alison McDowell's assessment of things. I think she's a little bit more on point than the pro crypto people.
For sure.
But
you usually
I'm always open to being wrong. I'm always open to being wrong. And two things that Alison said recently that resonated with me is because we talked about on one episode the importance of unity, and she said she thinks unity is overrated, and that she's more about standing in her position and providing clarity. And she also said, I'm not a part of any movement. I'm just here to provide clarity.
No,
I like that,
and I love that. I love that. And I mean, but because you got to be real, there are a lot of introverts out here. There's a lot of computer science people. They're not trying to do things the extroverted way that we might do things. But I like how she says that, you know, it's not about unity, but the problem is,
but see, I was going to say that to go back to that unity point, I do think, and I think tribalism is actually a good thing. I know tribalism is spoken about as if it's, you know, a detriment to democracy and all this other stuff, but tribes is actually the most natural form of human social organization.
Why do you think all of
tribal peoples are wiped out by these colonizers?
And when you say tribes, you're saying
tribal cultures?
Tribal cultures, okay.
But not only that, I mean, even so, that's
finding
the history.
I thought you were talking
today,
about like
you know, you're right.
Tribe.
Finding your tribe in today's world is a little bit different. But to her point about unity is, I feel like I agree with her that unity might be overrated in the sense that we don't need to unify society. We don't need to unify America or the world. We need to unify around is it the idea or the belief, or is it just being real? You know,
it's like being real, G. But
it's being real.
Yeah, it's being real. But that's the thing. We live in a utopia of information and how you should think, feel, and everything else is like told to you through a screen or through a parent or through
Right.
there are so many things that keep this system moving and running like a well-oiled machine. And a lot of it, I swear, it doesn't even really have to do with what these powerful entities are even doing. I mean, it does, of course, but a lot of it is just when you have a lost herd, man, and you don't know where you come from, and you're taught bullshit in schools, and all your information is censored, which we were just talking about, and so many other things. I mean, you're basically you're programming. Well, we've talked about that so much to you know to you blue in the face. But I'm just saying, um, I want to see it. I want to see it, and it's kind of like this crypto thing, man. I mean, it's not even that they're not worried about us. I mean, man, we're still in our early 30s, so maybe, but they're worried about the folks that are coming up, man. They're trying to create a whole new society out here. This is
Yeah.
what that's about. They don't care about the seniors no more.
Well,
And
that's what Allison's talking about. Just don't get children on the blockchain. That's her whole. That's the center of her whole purpose, I would
right,
say.
very true. And I hope that those messages ring loud. I hope that they ring loud, man, because
And I think that's
as we
from her point of view, starting a tribe is it's not about unity in the sense of getting everybody to unify. It's standing strong on this. I'm pro life in the sense of a biological life, organic
yeah,
life, and anti synthetic, parasitical,
transhumanism. They love
transhumanism,
that. They love that.
essentially.
They love
Um,
that. Transhumanism. I mean, that's what it is. And the blockchain and crypto and smart goggles and the metaverse in your glasses and contact lenses is how they are going to plug everyone in. I mean, it's
and then they're harvesting data.
listen,
It's all
listen.
about data harvest.
I've always been I consider myself to be very rational. I hate the irrational shit. I'm very rational, and I see things. I'm not saying I'm some. What I'm saying is that some things are just very. That this is exciting a lot of people right now. You know that a lot of people, and I'm talking kids up to hedge fund managers. You know what I'm saying? Older hedge fund managers. I mean, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult to fight these entities that I'm not saying it's impossible. Nothing is impossible, but it's very difficult when everything is created to look good, smell good, taste good, and be good. And for most people who will look at us and completely roll their eyes and say, I mean, I see it on Twitter all the time, the other side of people. I don't just live in our world. I see how other people feel and think. I see it's so, I mean, it's so cut off at the knee. I mean, it's so, whoa, here goes those theories, and here goes the tinfoils, and here goes I mean, the same way that we're rooted in our shit, they're rooted in their shit the same way.
Yeah.
And I've told you since day one, since we first started this, a lot of people like them, a different sort of reality has to happen for a lot of people for them to even begin to even think about consuming truth, authentic, organic truth, or not even, okay, what mix what you're saying, James? Truth, okay. Just questioning things or asking the right question, asking a question at all. How about that?
Right.
Let's start there. Just asking
This
the
is a
question.
segue. This is the perfect segue into the controlled opposition discussion because um, I've got my list here, my list of influential people. I did a top 25, and then I did an honorable mention, and then I did unpopular but still influenced me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a couple of personal mentors and a couple of friends and family that I want to shout out.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was doing this, I was like, let me just pick one example here off of my honorable mention list. So let's see. I've got, okay, so Judy Mikovits. Judy Mikovits is on my honorable mention list. Judy Mikovits is a former virologist. She wrote a book called Plague of Corruption back in 2019, actually, like right before this whole COVID thing started. And if you read it, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's not like she predicted it, but she kind of predicted it. Mm-hmm. But like she didn't even realize she was predicting it because it hadn't happened yet, you know. So the way it's written,
one thing that like, I realized 2 years later, just to piggyback off what you're saying, when people say, "Oh my God, how did you predict it?" or "How did you know that?" People, do you understand that
their plans are written? There's documents. Yes. They've planned this for a long time. It's not even. I mean,
listen. Shout out to George Orwell, but let's be real, man. Obvious. Oh my God, right. I could write a book called 1985. I could write a book called 2020, and in 50 years from now, look like a genius because I could tell you everything that's coming. You know, I could be close enough to telling you what's coming based off of what we're seeing them doing. The coercion, the deception, the manipulation, the forcing, the blockchain, like you're talking about, even taking the Alison McDowell approach from it. So I mean, it's a lot of way, and no disrespect to anybody that has written anything that has predicted in a way, because at the end of the day, you still have to have balls to put this information together, put it out to the people, and stand by it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So shout out to, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I was
no, that's actually, you're right on point, because so Alison, as much as I love her and is positive as I feel about her message and the worldview that she shares, she is not afraid. She says it herself. I'm very direct. Like if she feels like somebody is even close to pro blockchain, she will name names. And so Judy Mikovits, the reason I named her is because I don't know that Alison's ever directly called Judy Mikovits out, but Judy is associated with Children's Health Defense, which is one of the more prominent anti-vax companies or entities out there, run by RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I consider both of them. I mean, listen, I'm not pro-vaccine, but Alison has exposed Children's Health Defense as controlled opposition. Even though they're anti-vax, they're kind of subtly promoting like trace and track and precision medicine, which is still like pro blockchain and getting people on the blockchain, digital ID, this sort of thing. So it's like the opposite end. Instead of a vaccine passport, you can be on the blockchain and whatever. So so Judy Mikovits, this is just a good example of, okay, there is evidence out there with her association with Children's Health Defense that she could be called controlled opposition. Okay. And there's a lot of people on this list as I go through it that there is evidence that they're controlled opposition because of some association that they have. Okay. So
follow the money.
So here's my thing with controlled opposition. First of all, you have to define opposition. All right. So
and let's define it, G, because I want you to define it, because it's a funny thing is it's a very popular word in popular culture these days. I mean, all rap music talk about the ops. It's always a shout out to ops, and let's define
well, that's operatives. Technically, I think they're talking about operatives, government operatives.
Ops, but ops is also the last three words in cops too.
Oh yeah, and then
ops
opposition.
Is still in opposition. I mean, it's a play off a lot of things.
True. Yeah. Hip hop, gotta love it. We'll get to that too.
Oh yeah, we will.
So my thing about controlled opposition is this. Okay. This is one, he's on my top 25, but it's just the best example for me to talk about this is Joe Rogan. Okay. And the reason why I wanted to talk about controlled opposition in the same podcast where we talk about censorship is this, to me, okay, Joe Rogan, there's evidence out there he's controlled opposition. Elon Musk, I know you have certain types of feelings about Elon Musk. A lot of people don't like Elon Musk. I can certainly see where there's evidence that Elon Musk is trying to put everybody on a blockchain.
Me too.
Web
Don't get it
3
twisted.
world.
I don't want anybody to get it twisted because I got we
He's he's the
peep with that
Neuralink
too. It's
guy.
not that I know what Musk is doing. I'm just also like, yo, I'm trying to make a. Anyway, keep going, G. I'm not going to touch on that part because I need a whole segment on that to clear up my thing with Musk.
All right, we'll do that on another podcast.
Yes, we will. Yep.
We'll circle back to that. But
yeah.
But so yeah, controlled opposition for me, my and all right, so I'm not smart enough and I haven't fleshed these thoughts out. I'm going to be talking my thoughts out with you, right?
Okay.
So I haven't fleshed this out enough to like have it dialed in, but I know where I want to go with what I want to say here. So controlled opposition, Joe Rogan being a good example is like, I know that, yeah, he might be on CIA payroll, whatever. Like, maybe he's not. Here's the thing. I don't like making assumptions about anybody. And even if there is that level of like, maybe he's controlled opposition or whatever. Okay. To me, it's about, are you willing to talk about subjects that are taboo? Joe Rogan is willing to talk about subjects that are taboo. I was going through the list on his podcast. He's got like 1,700 of them now. There were so many names I knew. That's crazy to me. Like, maybe I don't listen to all of them. Mm-hmm. Maybe a lot of them are controlled opposition. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are comedians, because he's into comedy. But man, just so many names, just so many big names. And it's like, you gotta respect that. Like, you gotta respect this guy. He's made a living off of podcasting. And that's another, I want to talk about that too. This is not, I don't want to actually make money. Listen, if people want to give me money because I'm doing so great, I'm not going to reject, I'm not rejecting any donations.
Of course.
Let me put it that way.
Right.
But Charles Eisenstein is one of my, I love Charles Eisenstein. I love a lot of the work that he's done. And a lot of people in the conspiracy community lately have been targeting him as somebody that they say he's controlled op. Alison even went after him, and I'm going to defend him, even though I agree with her point, but I'm still going to defend Charles, and we'll get to that. But I want to finish up my thoughts on just controlled opposition in general. Mm-hmm. To me, it's like, if you're talking about things that are taboo, I like that. And I don't care if somebody else wants to call you controlled opposition, because to me, it's more about having that discussion. And if I don't agree with you, like, people need to take responsibility for themselves. Mm-hmm. Like, if Joe Rogan says something, Joe Rogan says a lot of things I don't agree with. There's a lot of things that he said, his worldview and mine are not all that compatible. But you know what he does? He talks about taboo subjects. He talks about things that the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about. And that's why he has 11 million viewers compared to CNN's 500,000.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, yeah, maybe he is controlled. Maybe, half of my list is controlled opposition. At the end of the day, it's my responsibility. It's like what I have in my bio on Twitter, man. And this is kind of a perfect analogy, because it is what it is. It's like, if I retweet somebody, that's me endorsing the tweet, not the tweeter.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean if I retweet Candace Owens, it doesn't mean that I support Candace Owens at all. At all. At all. It means that one tweet was something that resonated with me. And so and I feel people need to take that approach to everything in life.
Of course, but they
for what you agree to.
Yeah.
Just because Fauci or Gates or Rogan or Musk or Ben Stewart, I don't care. They say they're responsible for what they say. You're responsible for what you hear. You're responsible for what you incorporate into your life, what you agree to, and what you choose to act upon. So, controlled opposition or not, when people are discussing taboo topics in interesting ways, I'm going to listen to that.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And that's sort of, it's funny because that's sort of where I'm at with Musk too, though. It's like, his job is not to be Rogan. Okay. So he's not going to go as far as Rogan, but a lot of the stuff that Musk talks about and points out is like, yo, he's a nerdy, witty way of telling you to look this direction, or and he could be controlled op too.
I agree
Exactly.
with
It's the
him a lot
same.
of the time.
What
I
are we
disagree with
listen?
him a lot of the time.
First of all,
It's
me too. That's
exactly.
the thing.
Yeah.
First of all, anybody that has a major platform is to be questioned. I don't care.
Yeah,
I do not care.
Agree,
You
100%.
cannot get to a certain part of the pyramid in
Without
this
making
matrix
some sort of deal
without making
along the line.
some sort of deal
I
with
agree.
somebody.
I
Don't
agree.
care. So I no matter who I'm liking, tweeting, retweeting, or endorsing, if you're not locally homegrown, I already got an eye race to you, whether I support you or not. And if I support you, it's because this is how I feel about entities like Rogan and Musk and them. Listen, more so Rogan and Musk, because I get it. Like Rogan, at least we know he was a real human, and he was not real human. We know he was a real just regular person who started a pod and blew up from that. You know, the Musk
was he though? Because he was like Fear Factor host, and he was on the Man Show and stuff.
Very, very true.
He might have been groomed. He
might have been groomed
for this.
Very true. But
regardless, my point is
that, though,
he talks about things that are taboo to talk about,
and that's my
in intellectual ways. He has guests on that know how to speak to topics. Exactly. Whether they're muddying the waters or not, it's your responsibility to figure out what the water is and what the mud is. It's not, if they're getting paid to muddy the waters, that's their job. It's on you to figure it out.
Okay, great point. An even better analogy than Musk to compliment to Rogan would be the first person that ever made me say, you know what, this dude's nuts, but this shit kind of makes sense. And that was why am I drawing a blank on his name? Not Michael Moore. Michael Moore could be one of them, but I'm specifically talking about the other guy. The guy that's always ranting and raving. What's his name?
Alex Jones.
Alex Jones, right?
Yeah, no, that was one of my first ones too.
First ones. And listen. And listen.
And he's clearly, you talk about the definition of controlled opposition.
But why would I care? You know why?
Exactly.
Because if you listen to it, no matter how extreme he might be, all of the topics.
There's some gems. The
topics that he's talking about is the topics that you need to say, yo, he might be nuts with what he's saying, or I don't want to believe him, but let me go look into what he's talking about, because the stuff that people be canceling, it's so funny. G, I rant about this all the time when we talk. The same shit that you're canceling is the same shit that you can literally go find on the CDC website, right? Like literally, you think that it's some tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist just rambling shit off, when you can literally take most of the stuff people say and find that it's actually true. It's not. That's what's so funny about people canceling people with stuff, when it's like, before you cancel, why don't you go look into it and just tell me what you find first? Then cancel all you want to, or do whatever. But same thing. Alex Jones, Rogan, all of these guys. I mean, whatever. It's like they're talking about, like you said, taboo topics that will at least bring you to the, they say you can't bring a horse to a water, you can't bring it to the water and make it drink. It at least will bring you to the pond. And then, it's up to you on where you want to go with it, doing deep dives, doing research, going down the rabbit hole. But, just to piggyback off of that, like, I know exactly what you mean. That's not, and
to go back to a couple things, to tie together some disparate points that we made. It's like Alex Jones being the example. It's like you said something about you don't get to a certain platform without making certain deals. It's like Alex Jones has the platform he has because he's made certain deals to purposefully muddy the water, but you can't muddy the water without having some water. So There's a lot of true gems in there, but he has to do the crazy stuff so that the media can then turn around and portray him as crazy Alex Jones. Absolutely. So that you then discredit the true things that he's saying.
That's a very popular tactic used It's a very popular tactic used amongst folks like BOB and many other entities that have started conversations that, regardless of if you agree on them or not, why don't you just look into them? I bet look into them. I mean, this
Why does let me first state I do not believe in flat Earth, but the reason I state that is
I do
why
not believe
is
in.
the knee-jerk reaction to flat Earth mocking flat earthers? Why can't you, to your point, look into it?
That's how culture has been created. It's been programmed to, instead of saying, "Oh man, that shit sounds crazy," but let me just do some research on it because
Well,
it's not like I fucking know, and it's not like you fucking know, and it's not like any of y'all fucking know.
and to something else that you've said in previous podcasts, it's like you want to hear about human experience, real, true stories. What have you experienced? And to me, my experience when I actually looked into the flat Earth stuff, Eric Dubay being the one that I looked into, because he is one of the more prominent ones in that community. And Bob, that's the one he shouted out in the song. You know, debate with. He said something about debate with Eric Dubay. Basically, don't debate with me, debate with Eric Dubay.
Debate with him. Yep.
Yeah. And so I got a couple of Eric Dubay's books. I'll tell you, it changed my worldview. I did not become a flat earther. I didn't go that far. I wasn't that convinced, but because I didn't just automatically reject it as, doing with the mainstream thing, oh, these crazy flat earthers, you know what I mean? Because I actually took the time to look into it, I realized that there's a lot of evidence to show that it's not what we're told it is. Now he takes that evidence and says he believes the earth is flat.
Right.
Due to ancient scriptures and his argument for the flat earth didn't convince me. Yeah, that wasn't, and it could be, I could be wrong. He might be right. That didn't convince me. But where he started, the evidence against what we've been told it is, changed my worldview.
Yeah.
I believe the universe is a hologram. And if the universe is a hologram, then the earth is a hologram as well. So that means that the eye of the beholder, it could be flat, it could be spherical, it could be six-dimensional.
I keep coming back to I just think it's so funny how people are so sure of so many things.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I've always laughed at that.
They hold on to what they know, but they're not even willing to ask the question. Not even willing to question their belief.
Gee, what I've realized, I mean, listen, I can sit here for hours and we talk about things, I give opinions, and I love this. I love doing this stuff. At the end of the day, if somebody wants to understand me and how I look at things, it's very simple. I don't know shit and y'all don't know shit. We just don't know shit. There's so much that we learn about things and expound on and expand on. And obviously there are things that we can be very sure of based off of certain mathematics and based off of certain I hate
repeatable scientific
they've made
experiments.
me hate using the word science these days, but based off of
repeatable, observable scientific experiments.
There we go. Thank you, G, for that. Not just saying, oh, science, that's it, just science.
Right.
But actual deep dives and data and studies and observations and all of that stuff, and there's a lot of that you don't, we can be good at a lot of those things and still realize, man, we really have a lot of questions here. And it's okay to have questions. It's okay to be not know either. And it's okay to say, let me listen to some stuff and let me check some things out. And it, all of that, well, what does that help, James? It helps you in your time of reflection, meditation, observation, self journey. It helps you be
a phrase that Ben Stewart has been saying a lot lately, and I just, this is where you're going with it, and it seemed like you were having difficulty articulating what you wanted to say. Refining the blade of discernment, sharpening your blade of discernment, of evaluation, of judgment, but in a good way, like judging what energy is providing you with what
Oh,
where should you give your energy to, what's going to give you the most return
it's
on your time, on what you literally, your energy, what you spend your time on.
right.
That is that where you were going with that?
That's exactly where I
Yeah.
was going with it, because
Yeah.
ultimately, at the end of the day, there's a lot of distractions out here, and now more than ever. There's something for everything. There's a million different options. There's 24/7 because of social media. So there's 24/7 everything. So it's very important to be able to discern things, to be able to maneuver through the minutia, and to be able to say, my spirit and my what I always talk about, intuition, is telling me that what I'm hearing or what I'm seeing is some bullshit. I mean, think about how much better just in the last 2 years, G, that we've gotten with being able to identify a bullshit video. I mean, my God, imagine the amount of people that are out here that see something and immediately think it's real because clearly it's a video. My eyes are seeing it. It had to happen. That's not the case all the time. There's deep fakes. There's just fake. There's CGI. There's so many things that can be created to manipulate you, to lead you astray, that you have to be able to have good discernment skills now. And in a world in which some people might say, I don't know where to even begin with that, it comes from just admitting that you don't know anything, and that it's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to listen to different theories and observations, because your spirit, your plug into earth and the holy whatever entity this we're plugged into, will start to reveal itself for you. You can't even explain it. You can't explain it. You start to feel when
The
something
mystery.
ain't right, or don't feel right, or don't look right, or don't seem right, or whatever. And I mean, I think a big part of my journey, G, that I'm kind of happy about. I've been happy to feel like I didn't grow up reading a million books and really knowing a bunch of stuff, consider, like, yeah, obviously the stuff that we learned at school and all that crap. But I'm talking about, like, kind of really fleshing things out through experience and through intuition, and through allowing myself to be open-minded enough to take from other people's experiences and observations and their truth, or in a lot of cases their facts that they have put together and presented for a rational, open-minded individual to sit, ponder, and go through their own journey in whatever way that journey looks like for them, because everyone's journey is different. You know what I mean? And
I think sports were huge for me as a kid.
what was?
Sports.
Oh yeah,
I mean, you're out, number one. It's exercise, it's
yep,
strategy, it's teamwork,
yep,
interacting with other people, all of that. I mean, all of those are crucial life skills, social skills. So yeah, I would say sports was huge for me growing up.
absolutely. Same here.
But yeah,
Same
man,
here.
I'm
It's a
gonna let
natural
you start.
curiosity though too.
I'm gonna let you start giving out. Let's start giving out flowers, man. Because like I said, we're not primary researchers. We're just here to point you in directions that you might find interesting. You don't obviously need to take everything we say and go follow
Uh,
every breadcrumb that we drop. But
mm-hmm.
there might be something or someone that we talk about when we start giving out flowers that you're like, oh, that would be cool. That sounds like that resonates with you. And
Mm-hmm.
you might want to look into that, and it helps you out. So these are the reason we want to share what we're about to share, is because it helped us out. It shaped our worldview or our life or
Yeah.
the way that we think about things in a way that benefited us, that refined the blade of our discernment, so to speak. And
Yeah.
yeah, man, I'm gonna let you start.
I think just thinking about it from the more so the beginning and moving my way through my life. I mean, for me, um, a big entity. Music, G, was a big, specifically hip hop, as we all know. I just remember going to um, Walmart and getting those singles and starting to tap into one of the first singles I ever bought was Naughty by Nature. And then it was some Snoop Dogg ones, some Dr. Dre ones, some Eminem ones. First album I ever bought was the Eminem album, and I think right after that was Chronic 2001, Dr. Dre album. And it was the music and the subjects that were being talked about that first started the, oh, there's another way to maybe emotionally like look or feel about something that is either you're passionate about or bothering you, or is an issue in society or issue in your community. And it really started, huh?
Something that feels real.
Something that feels real. And coming from a musical family, you know, it really helped me find my own, like, I see, you know, kind of moment in music. And I think for me and my journey and trying to put all that together, it really started when I listened to Nas, you know. And I want to give flowers to Nas because A, that's where it started for me. And B, you know, this segment is to give these flowers.
And I'm going to put links
look at
in the description. I'm going to put
Mhm.
links to something significant from everything, all of the flowers that we give.
Awesome. That's awesome. For me with him, it was the ability to have such a platform and talk about the subjects that he was talking about, such a, you know, an Illmatic and you know, fast forward to just his whole catalog, but Stillmatic and some of his other projects. It just for me personally, it was what made me first say, God, this is an amazing thing here, you know, that he's a part of, that segue me into it myself. So I probably, you know, now, you know, I know there's, listen, at that same time frame, there's friends, there's family, there was coaches, you know, I was heavily in the church, involved in church at that time. There's some things that I could say, but reflecting on my journey and who I really am as a person, it really starts with that. It really starts with I think right there with Nas and giving him his flowers. And to add to that, seeing how the respect that he's getting now, you know, it's like, it seems like the industry and even entities in the game that you know are quote unquote even more on top of the hierarchy, like Jay-Z in the rap game, giving him his flowers now, and he's getting the respect, he's getting Grammys now, he's getting his flowers now. So I'm here to also give him his flowers as a fan, because being a part of his discography so early in my hip hop ear journey really started it with me.
I mean, bro, he's been rapping for 30 years now.
And that's the thing. I found hip hop through hip hop.
I mean, he's been rapping damn near as long as we've been alive, bro.
Absolutely.
And probably as long as we've been alive.
And I think him,
you know, going back to when he really started, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm thankful to have come up in a time where I have an ear that is very ever evolving. I love all sorts of different genres and subcategories of hip hop now, even some of the new bucks with the turn up and the trap sound. But I'm always able to stay rooted because it started with hip hop for me. It started with hip hop for me. So and that start was because of Nas. So I want to start there with my brother Nas, to be honest.
Go ahead, man. Keep it going. I just do your whole thing. Do your whole thing, and then I'm gonna do my whole thing.
You know, as you can see, G, I didn't really have a list, but I got it in my head. I think also around that time, who else was influential? Obviously, starting from the back up, you know, I think one important figure in my life that I always want to point to, of course, and everybody in my circle knows, Coach White was Mark White was very influential in my life, and keeping me straight and you know, through my athletic journey, through dad being sick, through scholarships and through everything that was happening in that part of my life, high school through early stages of college. And, you know, things happened in college that didn't work out for me as far as that's concerned. But obviously, as you know, as we get older and reflect on things, there's no denying how influential Coach White was in my life, and many other people at that time too. But I'm kind of focusing on the highlights of it. And Coach White was, of course, at that time, was a big piece of that. I think obviously my dad, who it's easy to say your parents, but hey, for some people, they don't have relationships with their family. So I am still going to say my dad. And to this day, he's been an important figure for me, and giving him his flowers just as far as always letting me be me in a sense, never really trying to force me to be nothing I'm not. Always trying to lead and guide in a sense, but as any parent would do, but always still letting me make my own mistakes and live my own life the way that we're learning to live it in a sense. So definitely want to give flowers there too. I want to give where else can I want to, to be honest, which, I'm at this point kind of moving into the phase of oh, and then staying in that realm from then to even now. I already gave you your flowers, G, but to compliment that, a good friend of mine who's been on this podcast as well, LT, he's been very critical in my evolution of understanding money and understanding finances and understanding a lot of other things that have shaped and molded me along the way. And we all grew up together. So very influential. I try to keep my circle very small. And shout out to all my homies. Obviously, this is not missing anybody. I've got great friends, Ashton and you, and so many other people that have been influential to me. But obviously, I'm just calling out overarching people for some of these sections in life. So LT being another big one, who deserves flowers. But I guess to also add to that, my moment, and I tell my story on the earlier episodes about like how I even fell into this awakening stage, but
I need to clip that actually. That's a good reminder.
Yeah. But it wasn't per se any individual per se. My journey really was me. Now, like I tell in the story, there was something that
triggered
made me, there was some outside of what word am I looking for? There was some supernatural situation,
anomalous
anomaly that happened that started that me saying I need to look into this, and that kind of led into a bunch of other things. But I just think at that time, though, I'm trying to think of who was
any authors that you read, any YouTube people that you follow, podcasters, other musicians aside from Nas. I know you love
Kanye.
I know you love Kanye.
Yeah, and Ye too. I mean, Ye, yes, I am going to give Ye his flowers. Yes, I am. I mean, Ye.
Talk about a controlled opposition candidate.
Yes,
I know you're going to defend him.
It's not about defending him. It's about going back to what we were talking about.
He talks about things that he's not supposed to talk about.
He talks about,
right. You might not. I don't agree with everything he says. I don't agree with
the way nobody. No, and listen.
And we can go ahead and talk about this right now. The Kanye and Big Sean drink.
Yeah, I didn't like podcast. That. I didn't like that.
I'm on Big Sean's side with that. Big Sean has done too much for Kanye for him.
For sure.
Throwing him under the bus publicly.
Now, like that. I will say. And Ye could have handled what I will say about that. Ye could have handled it a little differently. I don't like that. First and foremost, I am all about good music, as we know. For not just because of Ye, because of what they do, what they can do, what they have done, and what they can do if they and when they want to, and they'll be back fine. One thing, if people pay attention to Ye will never let a issue linger for too long. He just won't. He'll go and he'll have a Gemini moment, and he'll be like, "Man, I probably could have handled that a little differently," and then he'll go take care of it. So I'm not worried about Ye and Big Sean, but I do think he could have handled it a little differently. Okay, and I wish that I wish that they had talked and dealt with it, and I'm sure Sean's going to get his $6 million or whatever he's owed. Everything will be okay. Now, what I want to say about it though is, G, as somebody who knows how important it is when we're talking about, hey, if I'm running my own political party here, and we know the truth about what these other entities is doing, I just would prefer you to not be coming out and repping any of those other parties, at least in public. I do agree with Ye on that part. Now, did Ye have to come out and handle it that way and say, I should have never signed Sean and I should have? No, he didn't have to do that. He started, first of all, you asked a Gemini to start drinking brown liquor, and somebody with an ego like it, you already know you bound to get some good sound bites. Okay, so let's remember the boy was off the Henny. You know what happened the last time he was off the Henny? Taylor Swift got embarrassed. So let's be real. So okay, but what I will say is, G, if me and you know what's up with politics. If you was running your own party and I was over here giving Biden the hand job, I'm sure you wouldn't be happy with me either. All right, that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
But Big Sean never did endorse Biden. Yeah, I know he did a show or whatever, but he never endorsed Biden.
I still understand Ye looking sideways. Now, like I said, did Ye have to come out and say that?
Well, my only comment on the whole situation is, you know, I like Kanye too, so I am sympathetic to what you're saying, but as somebody who can take a step back and look at both of those podcasts from an unbiased point of view, Big Sean sounded like an adult.
I get that.
And Kanye, there were definitely some moments where he sounded like a spoiled brat, to put it bluntly.
And we know that much about Ye at this point, so we shouldn't be too taken aback by that.
But the last thing I got to say about it
doesn't make it right how he handled it. No, it doesn't.
I was already feeling that way throughout the episode, but then something that Big Sean said at the very end of his episode that was like, he won me over. He said, well, I've read the 4 agreements and, you know, we can just sit down. We'll sit down and hash this out. We'll get it straight. Just like you were just talking about. He's like, he was being an adult.
I literally didn't even hear him say that. G, you know, I would have.
You got to catch the very end of it. You got to catch the very end.
I thought I did, but I might have been distracted.
I've read the 4 agreements, and I was like, "That's my Big Sean. I've always liked you, but now I fucking love you, man."
and like I said, listen, Ye will never let a problem linger too long. Jay, Consequence, anybody out of Chicago. I mean, you name all of his Drake now, you name them all. And the Drake thing might still be here and there. That might just be business, but still.
I'm also a Talib Kweli fan, and he throwing.
I mean, it is what it is.
I get that.
It is what it is. Ye got a right to. Ye got the ear of a lifetime. If Ye don't like it, Ye don't like it. Whatever. I mean, I like some of what Talib has done throughout the year, but you know, if it ain't gonna work for Ye, it ain't gonna work for Ye. He got a right to feel that way. I don't care about what he said about Talib. My thing was the Big Sean thing. I did not like how he came out and said what he said, but they will be fine. They will be fine. They will work it out. And that. Now, back to the controlled opposition piece. Let me tell you something. Ye is trying to just live at this point, okay? Ye is trying to live, all right? Now, I don't think he's running around fearful for his life per se, but Ye know that Ye has already, especially when they drug him off stage and took him to UCLA, Ye already know what time it is, okay? With these entities that he is up against. So, controlled opposition, what more do you want the man to say other than taking a video recorder down in the cloning facilities? I don't know what else you want the man to do. It's like, he starts ranting and people just tune him out or they just stop listening. You have to listen to him. You have to sift through some things sometimes because he starts, that's fine, whatever, sift through it. I mean, this is what
you nailed it. That was an exact phrase I was going to use. You got to be able to sit when it comes to controlled opposition. But not even just Kanye, whether you're talking about Alex Jones or Joe Rogan or any of these controlled oppositions, it's up to you. It's your responsibility to sift through and find the nuggets of truth.
Right.
and find out what's bullshit. And if you're looking for people that are not going to bullshit you at all, you need to look for small platforms like me or Conspiracy, or people that are probably wrong about some things, and that's why they don't even censor us, is because eventually down the road we're going to look like idiots when half the stuff we said turns out to be bullshit.
I
But
don't
we're
know.
all
We looking pretty golden right now. Since 2020,
you're right, not half. It's certainly not half, but maybe even just. But that's the thing, James. They run the branding and the marketing in this world. So all we have to do is slip up one time.
Of course. And then they're gonna point to that right.
I mean, look at B.O.B. He's talking about the realest shit in every category.
Elements, and yet they focused
on flat Earth.
Yeah,
that's the exact point I was about to make. Is this man made elements? Anybody who's listening, just listen to the 4 Elements projects, mixtapes, albums, whatever, from B.O.B.
Yep.
And tell me why all they wanted to talk about was flat Earth, because they're trying to discredit all the truth he's talking about. So that's my
point. That's my point with Ye. And the last thing I'll say about Ye, and we'll move on, is Ye is in a different point of his life. The man's a billionaire, okay? So we also got to remember that he's been disassociated from down here for a little. Now he's trying to regroom himself. That's why he doesn't live in homes and he's in the middle of nowhere and does all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, a lot of what Ye rants about, Ye's ranting about from the perspective of, hey, when you creators and you influencers and podcasters and musicians, when you get here and you're being hosed because of the contracts and you're being not letting you blow up and you trying to get into other industries and you can't get in because you're a rapper and they put this label on you and this, that, and the third. And what happens with some of these famous people's kids, like that rant that he went on Twitter about his daughters, which nobody caught. I've talked about this before. Nobody caught what he was talking about with his daughters. Nobody caught when he was talking about that stuff. But basically, he was just talking about, they thought he was having a, what grinds my gears is when somebody is emotional about something and they get slapped with he's having a manic episode. Oh, he's mental health. Oh, blase. Listen, okay, I'm not big enough yet for me to be having to re-step over all my words and say, just in case, I'm not saying that mental health isn't a thing. We all know mental health is a thing, okay? All right, we get it. But what I'm talking about is just using that as a scapegoat to slap on anything and everything because you don't understand it or because someone is showing a little emotion.
That's exactly to the point of that clip from Dave Chappelle talking about we need to stop calling people crazy. It's dismissive.
Seriously.
It's just an excuse to not listen to him. Yes. I don't understand you, so you're crazy.
And now the new word for crazy is mental. The new term for crazy is mental health, right? Well, they just group it under the same umbrella. Is my point, right?
Some sort of mental health disorder.
Some sort of mental health.
Bipolar.
Bipolar, mantic. Bipolar and mantic are the two things that I've heard more in the last 2 years than ever.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, but anyway, my point. I'm wrapping up what I'm saying about Ye. Ye talks to the people. Ye also is dealing with things where it's like, he's talking to the people that are trying to get into that world, and he knows what they're going to be up against when they get in there. And he's trying to dismantle and uproot systems and change things. Controlled op or not. Listen to what he's saying, and you don't have to
sift it yourself. That's what it comes down to. The whole controlled opposition thing for me comes down to, they are responsible for what they say. You're responsible for what you take away from it.
There you go.
Simple as that for me.
All right. Well, I'm done with Ye at the moment. I think moving past Ye, Flowers. I mean, listen.
I know you were on Russell Brand for a minute. He's not on my list, but I expected him to be on your lists that you have in your head.
I don't have. You know what? Russell Brand might be the only one who's dead. Well, listen. Maybe he's controlled. But let me tell you about Russell Brand. And let me tell you what I look for when I'm trying to decipher between these entities, right? These people. Who is getting pushed and promoted as the conspiracy person versus who is doing it and they don't really want them to be popularized. Russell Brand is one who my algorithms ain't putting him in front of me. Okay.
Yeah.
My
I don't know.
my
Maybe though. They're like he's low key.
listen, you got to remember
He's definitely plugged in.
he's plugged in because of how he started. But you're right, G. But listen,
I
don't
mean,
get it
even
twisted.
B.O.B., even
You're
Ben Stewart, even Don Miguel. It's like you got to be skeptical.
you got
Even
it.
me, I could be controlled up and not even know it. You know what I mean? That's where we're at this point.
Well, very
With the
true. But then
CIA, nano dust, and all this. Like,
no, very true. Listen, I'm in no
if you're
way
going to
saying
keep it real, you got to keep it all the way
tell
real.
anybody, like I'm listen, don't misconstrue what I'm saying. Anybody at that level, and I already said that earlier anyway. My thing is, I do, if you want me to be slightly optimistic, G, I do believe sometimes that there is a gray area between the people who get in the or get into that world and they get to see the stuff that we haven't even really started talking about yet. Because there's topics that I haven't even really, I mean, we've touched on them, but I haven't really dug into them on the pod yet for certain reasons.
But I
Not
mean,
that they
that's
won't.
like, go listen to the Tinfoil Hat podcast, Sam Tripoli. Got a
Absolutely.
lot of that, That's
But
why I want to be different. This is first and foremost, these are therapy sessions.
right, first and foremost, right. Now, but going
And we're
back to what I
telling
was
our
saying,
story.
exactly. But back to what I was saying, that's what I mean. It's like I do believe that there are people who get in that world. I believe Bernie Mac is a great example. His story resonates because anybody who knew Bernie Mac, other than the people who knew him that knew was Bernie Mac, to me, is a great example to point to of folks who, yeah, he was in it. He was in the game. He was plugged in and was going to straight to the top. But
He said some things
sometimes,
that they didn't want him to say.
well, not even saying things. Sometimes you start to see things as you
He
move up.
started to opt out.
You started to opt out, right? And there's a lot. There's a way. Well, there's not a lot of ways to opt out, but sometimes if you've done enough, you can opt out as long as you keep your mouth closed and you know. But there was some people in his circle that wanted people to know that he was going to be talking about some things that he had seen and witnessed in some of the things that Bob have talked about, some of the centers that Bob have talked about underneath of us.
Dumb.
That he
dumb.
and apparently through everything that Bernie had saw, that was the one thing that fucked with him more than anything, was seeing that. Because when you see that, in my research, because the people that know about that don't believe that they're really human. They believe that they're just empty, soulless vessels. They feel that they can treat them and do whatever they want to them. They're disposable. They're not even, they don't look at them as compatible in a sense. And I think,
they don't
and
have
even
human
watching
rights
some of the propagandized movies that Hollywood has put out over the years, as you can see in some movies, there are plenty of people that still become emotionally attached to these things and entities. And not even just that. I mean, it's down to that movie Her, where the dude fell in love with his damn cell phone. So my point is that some people don't like the stuff that they start to see happens to these entities.
You said that
right?
as I was reaching for my cell phone. just had to put that in there.
So, but anyway, the whole Bernie Mac thing just came up because I believe it showed me that I do believe that you could still be plugged in and still might get to a point in your stages, 1, 2, 3 Mason level on the pyramid, and you might see something that really fucks with your spirit and you can't deal with it. And
you think that's what sent Dave Chappelle to Africa?
Yeah, man. Well, I don't know about I don't know this dude. I don't know, but the Dave Chappelle before, yeah, that's what sent him.
The skinny Dave.
The skinny Dave that there's other differences too, but there's other differences too. But some people might say, "Well, that's a nitpick difference," or that happens when you. Okay, I guess, man. But
Skull shape though. That's a
there's some things there. But anyway,
there's some things there. We're not gonna go down
there's
that
some
road.
things there,
We're
man.
not going down that road.
We're not going down there, but there's some things there. But I say that to just say that, I do believe that there are people who are plugged in even to this day. I mean, and when we call them controlled op, it's like they trying to tell you something, but I mean, what can you really say without getting off, looking crazy, being sent to the mental house, or getting your freaking head shocked by the reprogramming? I mean,
yeah,
people
no,
roll
I
their
get
eyes
you.
at that
I
too,
get
but
you.
there's so much information
Yeah.
and research on how all that.
Yeah, I
stuff
was
happens.
laughing at you with the graphene oxide, and I mean, even Allison's been. There's a clip with Allison talking about that. I'm gonna put that on
You
her
know what,
playlist.
G? To be honest, that's starting to be my theory more so than anything. The more we dig into this, now don't disconnect. I think 5G is a part of it too. I think the nanotechnology is a part. All of that is all. It's all related.
It's all connected. It's all
It's
related.
all
It's all the
connected.
Internet of bodies. It's
So
this
Internet of Bodies.
exactly what we were talking about earlier. The
Absolutely.
colonization of our biology. They have no land left to colonize. So now the next iteration of this hyper capitalist world is to colonize the body and to
The
get
human,
data from
the
that,
body.
and then you
Absolutely.
can nudge behaviors. You can um, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically encourage. That's not the exact
Literally.
word I'm looking for, but you can
Absolutely.
encourage certain behaviors.
Very true.
um
Very true.
Anyhow, that's Alison
Um,
McDowell. If y'all want more information on that, check out the Alison McDowell stuff.
absolutely.
But go ahead, keep
But
going.
but um that's I mean, well, you had said brand. I mean, brand is another one. It's another one, bro, where it's like maybe he's controlled, man, but I've listened to enough Russell Brand to know that it's like you said, it's up to you
Yeah,
because he's bringing shit. He's bringing
yeah,
some good stuff.
there's a lot of truth there.
Yeah,
There's
that's what I'm
truth there.
saying. But G, here's the thing, and I'm gonna say this. I've said this a lot. They don't care any. It's not like they don't want you to know. They already know that there's a percentage of people who's going to listen to everything that these guys are saying and say, "Fuck these guys. These guys is crazy. They talking some wild stuff. I ain't trying to hear it." They already know that. Then they know it's a percentage of people that's going to be like, "Oh, this is what I'm talking about. I already know this. Yes, yes, yes." And then there's a percentage of people who's going to be like, I don't know, but man, this kind of makes sense. But let me look, let me do this. They already know. I mean, controlled up, they don't care. Everybody is playing their role. When you are plugged in, you have a role to play. You know, some people role is to talk this stuff. Some people role is to actually give you complete truth. I mean, I think some of the stuff that a lot of these cats is talking about is legit. But I mean, how do you know? And you got to sift through it all. And
It's
like
your
anything else,
responsibility.
if we're not
You've got
experiencing it,
to
how do we even
refine
really
your own
know? I mean,
intuition.
you can
You
say that
use
to
the word
anything.
you use the word intuition earlier, and that's what I think it ultimately comes down to is no matter who you're interacting with, whether you're listening passively to some podcast or music or whatever it may be, or whether you're actively interacting in dialogue like we are right now, regardless, it comes back to they are responsible for what they say. You're responsible for what you hear. You're
Yep.
responsible for what you say.
Yep.
They're responsible for what they hear.
Absolutely.
And that's ultimately what it comes down to.
That's ultimately what it comes down to. And I mean, the amount of people and things that there is out here nowadays to listen to and to get information from, I get it and I understand it's not easy. But my thing is, why do you need to, like, do people really need to be held, their hand held and walk through so many conspiracy entities to know that regardless if you believe all of them or not, that the entity that you are aligning yourself with does not have your best interest at heart? Like, do you like what I'm saying there is, like, regardless.
No, you're onto something there.
I mean,
Making a great point.
regardless of how much shit you think people are spewing that is like conspiracy or detrimental to people, do you really think that because of what is the CDC or because it's Fauci or because it's on your fucking news that these entities and these people have your best interest and heart? Like, take all of that other stuff away. Like, why just start your own journey in figuring this stuff? Forget what anybody else is saying.
That's exactly to the
Forget
point.
it all. Just you should have enough human in you.
To take
Because God gave
responsibility
us
for
all
what you
human
believe.
and intuition for
Right.
us to be able to be like, yeah, that don't sound right, look right, taste right, smell right, feel right, all of that.
Right.
I'm probably going to take my chances over here
Mm-hmm.
and figure it out.
Yep.
You know, versus saying, you know, science, man. Science told us, man. You know, and man, Fauci, man, he's fool, man. Fauci, he's that Fauci boy. I tell you, he's a convincing fella. And Fox News and CNN, oh boy, I tell you, man, them boys got it together on there. We definitely got to listen to what they're talking about because they got it. You know, it's the news. I mean, for sure. How does that make you feel? I mean, how does that sound?
I agree.
With no question, no, you know, I always, you know, gee, I love going back to that. I mean, oh, Jay, what are you talking about? It's proof is in the pudding that we don't question shit. Flying planes above our sky, spraying it with trails for years. It literally, it took me to college to even realize, you know, man, I'm questioning this shit. And no, I've never heard nobody.
But to be fair to you, it was just kind of starting then too, as far as really.
No.
The program, the program definitely accelerated after 06.
Oh, okay, accelerated. But I was about to say, gee, I was noticing that earlier. I just didn't. Right. I didn't have the withdrawal.
But it was much rarer.
True.
I mean, 1999 chemtrails versus today chemtrails.
Oh no! I totally agree.
Gigantic difference. Yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah. Well, there's nothing to even say there. I totally agree. But you know.
I mean, it's my point is to be fair to you is it has only gotten more obvious as time has passed.
Exactly.
And they publicized geoengineering in 2016. I mean, it wasn't even a secret after 2016, but it was a conspiracy before that. Like that's what we're talking about.
But this is what I'm talking about with so many things. It's you're crazy until you read it about.
They rebranded it instead of chemtrails. It's geoengineering.
Right? And this is why we have to
have a positive spin on it.
The positive spin. Oh, well, some areas don't get rain, so we want to be able to. Yeah, okay. All right. Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, you know what? But I'll tell you one thing. Once again, G, it's one of those things where it's like, when you know enough, we don't have to know everything. But when you know enough, you can maneuver differently. And let me tell you what a lot of people are dealing with right now is fear. And let me tell you what understanding this shit really, not their form of understanding, but understanding a lot of this stuff, even down to COVID, you will move with a lot less fear in life, people, if you just start to not be fearful, dive into understanding these things head first. Because even if they sound scary on what's to come, you can better prepare yourself for how to maneuver through it all, you know? And it doesn't happen overnight, people. It takes time. You're going to have to years and reading and research and being wrong and being okay with being wrong and trying again and listening to yourself to even begin to understand what intuition is and it's a journey. That's why you always hear me say journey, you know, awakening journey, because it is a journey and I'm not there yet. No one's there yet. I mean, but it better helps you just maneuver through a lot of this stuff, you know, and leads you to where you're going to be led to. I solely believe the truth is there for all of us. Our guiding light, whatever that guiding light may be, spirit, God, entity, whatever people want to call it, will move you toward all of that if you want to be moved toward it, you know. But man, you know, you got to be able to think for yourself, and you got to be able to critically think, boy, because it's only getting harder, G. Because it's only getting harder.
Water's only getting muddier.
It's only getting muddier. I mean, how can I talk to my people about certain things when literally all they got to do is pull up a video about some of the stuff that's happened over the years. And it's hard for me to explain to them why that's may not be a real video though. Like, and by the time people start talking about, oh man, it's fake videos out here, it'll be 10 years later and we'll be so deep down that goddamn wave as a society, it won't even matter no more. Too late. You didn't listen to us 10, 15 years earlier. So now here we are. So, like I always say, slippery slope, G. There's a lot of slippery slopes out here, bro, that we be playing with. Cancel culture, censorship, all of that. Since slippery slopes. You give somebody.
I see the positive to it though, because it forces those that want to be awake that are still asleep to wake up. It forces those that are awake to continue down the journey that we're talking about of refining your blade of discernment.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows the people that want to be asleep to keep being numb and going down your path of living a damn near meaningless life.
Yep.
Robotic life, and that's their choice though.
Yeah.
So my stance on that has changed too. Instead of like trying to convince them and stuff like, I don't even do that anymore. My position with that is you have to respect, show that if ultimately what we're looking for is the growth and maturity and awareness. I was going to say freedom, but I think I like the word awareness better because freedom a lot of times is still,
murky.
Well, it's like free in what sense?
Yeah,
right? Or free in what capacity or in what circumstance, in what situation, free from certain things or free to do. I think real freedom comes from your spirit. It comes from not censoring yourself, what we were talking about earlier. But I think awareness, I think tapping into that awareness and that growth, that as long as we're not being restricted from growing, then I don't, I see things playing out like I've talked about a lot. I know it, but I've said it on a previous episode. The darker it gets, the worse it gets. Maybe I'm an asshole. Maybe I'm going along with the elitists a little bit too much in thinking this way, but I really do think it's like, wake up or go to sleep, like in Ben Stewart, one of the only 2 videos that YouTube did reject, of course, was one of my clips with Ben Stewart. So guys, please go on the BitChute or the Rumble.
Oh wow, ours.
Watch that clip.
That one is the one that
of course, right? Of course, Ben Stewart. It's called Two Paths, and it's so real. We're going on 2 paths, right? And the paths are diverging further and further. You're either going along with the COVID narrative, you're going to keep getting your boosters, you're going to be as plugged in as definitionally possible, by definition, plugged in, or you're going to remain loyal to biological and organic life. And again, we're using the internet, right? We're using technology. There's probably technology inside of us that we haven't consented to, right? More than likely, but I think when you begin to agree and to consent to being a cyborg, and that's when you go down the road of being hackable by some other entity. And at the end of the day, I want to maintain even the word sovereignty. Alison McDowell broke that word down in one of her episodes, and it's like sovereignty within a reign. The word reign is in sovereign. Well, who are you? So if you're sovereign, well, that means you're sovereign within the reign of some other entity or empire. It's like, I think it's more about, never censoring yourself, always using your voice, and always expressing the art that is genuine within your heart and your brain, and bringing those into coherence, and having gratitude for life, and being fully alive.
Absolutely. I like how you put that.
But yeah, man, this has already been a great episode, and I've got a lot more. So let's just like pick up the pace a little bit.
Let's go. Let's rock. Rapid fire.
Any other musicians aside from the few that we've named that
I
Biggie's
could go. I could go on for days about musicians.
but
I'm trying to catch
name like I don't
overarching.
want to say a top 5, but like a top 10 or top 15, like the ones that immediately come to the top of your head. Don't have to think about it too hard. Just ones that you're like,
Oh,
these
I
are
mean, with
big
musicians,
influences.
I already said Nas and Ye, but obviously then there's Jay, then there's, I mean, Biggie. You gotta, I mean, it's easy to say Biggie and Pac, but for me specifically, Biggie, just because I really saw like, damn, this dude, like his rap, this is just his cadences and his hooks and just his raps. And to be honest, a sacrificial lamb, two huge sacrificial lambs, literally, for hip hop to be where it's at today. Because it wouldn't be where it's at today if they didn't, believe it or not, people, that's just how the powers to be operate, and that's how certain entities operate. They got it. They go off of numbers and sacrifices, and some people call it devil worship, and I'm sure it's a lot of that shit in there too. I think a lot of it just comes back down to rituals. I think a lot of it. I think a lot of people slap the devil on stuff that they don't understand anyway. Um, Even though there's a lot of Satanism in music, in the music industry. My point in saying all of that is just to say, um, you know, flowers to Biggie, of course, just because that was the start of things. But continuing to flow out with musicians. I mean, listen, I am a out here. I get, I be having arguments with people all the time, with people who don't have evolving ears. My ear will never be stuck in one time frame. It won't, because that's not how it operates. Hip hop is ever evolving. Music is ever evolving. Sound is ever evolving.
Okay,
And
but going back to 2001 or whenever you got into Nas, and
mhm.
going from that point forward, who were some of the names that come to mind?
Oh man, Eminem. I was really heavy in listening to a lot of Aftermath. I was listening to a lot of Aftermath at that time because a lot of Aftermath was in the stores as singles. But Naughty by Nature, a lot of up north artists, um, Cannabis and Cypress Hill, and and all of those kind of guys. I mean, my goodness, and just like and just Big L. I mean, just rappers. That's where it started for
Well, I was
me.
gonna say, what about non-hip hop? What are some of your favorite musicians? Not
Oh, I
hip-hop?
mean, from records and vinyls that my dad had of, my mom was a musician, and my dad was a drummer, and my dad was the mentor for Chester Thompson, which is Phil Collins drummer. So I grew up listening to Phil Collins. First album I ever played and listened to and heard was Michael Jackson, though, that I can remember. And I mean, Michael Jackson was great.
Legend.
But so a lot of that, a lot of vinyls and soul and like Aretha and all of that, because those are the records that my dad had in the house. So I was listening to a lot of that stuff growing up. But when we're talking about flowers, I'm talking about people I'm personally giving flowers to. So it
Well, that's
really,
what I mean. Who are there any people or bands outside of hip hop that not your dad, but you picked
I
up on that you would want to give flowers to?
I love people who progress a sound or a genre forward or create it from scratch. Um, I love, I really do love Coldplay. I know that's kind of corny, but I do love Coldplay. I love Coldplay. I love old Elton John. I love Elton John, not just old Elton John. I love, even like, even even chain smokers, man. I love what they did with that sound. I love chain smokers. I really do. Um, but what other bands did I?
And if they don't come straight to the top of
Yeah, I
your head,
wasn't
don't
really
worry
a
about it.
big band. It really was. Gee, it's always really been
You've
about
been
hip
hip
hop
hop.
from.
I know. I know. Yeah.
I started falling into other industry just because genres, because damn, I was like the sub fusion sound. I really started getting in the fusions of sounds, and now I mean fusion is a big part of a lot of genres. Um, but um, you know, hip hop, man, it's breath of fresh air for me, and there's more. artists and real artists come out and continue to push forward, continue to create, continue to evolve, push the culture forward. I'm all for it, and I told you I'm starting some projects. I'm trying to get, a curated playlist thing going on. I'm trying to get a little page going on where I talk about artists and new releases and rate them and all of that stuff. So that's to come. I don't want to talk too much about it now because it's not finished, but um, I love it, man. It keeps me plugged in, and I mean, music, and music festivals and concerts and all of that really keep me going out here. Keep me going out here, and in the journey of trying to find self and still managing all the other shit that you barely care about, like some of these 9 to 5 jobs and other things that we've worked over our time. It was music that keep it, and sports too, of course, but it was music that really keeps me going through all of that, through this journey. So. But flowers, man. I mean, mainly those artists. I mean,
Any underground or independent artists that immediately come to mind?
listen, Bob deserves flowers for Elements. Bottom line, and I know there's a lot of other projects like that out there, but I look for special situations. And I consider Bob to be a special situation because this dude was huge. You're talking about a guy that worked with Bruno, and he's got this big old platform, and he was making commercial radio music. And for him to step out in on his own journey and put something like that together, he deserves flowers for that.
Absolutely.
Any art, Ab Soul deserves flowers. TDE deserves flowers for saving hip hop and coming in at the time that they came in. Kendrick deserves flowers. Ab Soul really deserves flowers, though. Seriously.
Yeah, no doubt.
I can't even wait. I don't even think our ears will be able to digest what he's probably been working on.
I think 2022 is the year. I think his next one.
It kind of has to be.
It's this year.
It kind of has to be. He's been gone long.
It might not be the first half of this year, but I think it'll be this year.
I think it'll be this year too. So yeah, as far as music is concerned, I mean, I think those sorts of guys deserve flowers. I mean, and then a lot of the guys that have passed on, and I've got there's a lot of theories out here, and a lot of those things too, especially in hip hop. But I'll save that for another time, and I'll just focus on the Nips of the world, and even guys that people might roll their eyes at because it's like, well, look at what they're rapping about, like Young Dolph. Listen, I believe that every lane of hip hop, there's room for every lane of hip hop, from mumble rap to Cronin to trap to all of that. It's like it's room for it. And when you're an artist who can find ways to still be modern and still catch audiences' ears of all age ranges, and you still can throw messages within your sound, even if you are generally a trap artist or a whatever artist, I applaud you for that. And let me tell you who else deserves flowers. The people that are out here trying to wake people up. All of them. All of the.
Well, I'm going to name a bunch of them, at least in my opinion.
And I'm gonna let
a lot of them are going to be controlled opposition.
I'm gonna let you run with it, G, because that's probably where I'm segueing at this point now. Anyway, I'll let you run with it because it's like, listen, you got in a world that's so fake and propagandized, and a lot of mainstream elements of it fits that mold. You've got to have the other side. And
rapid fire.
Let's go.
I want to get you through it. Any podcasters that immediately come to mind outside of our own, of course.
Any podcasters? I must say, God, it's hard. I did grow up. I mean, it's hard to just say the regular ones, but the big time ones, they're going to get their flowers. But the guys that are, and I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to podcasts and I listen to those podcasts a lot. But I really liked what Chris Spiracy was doing. I really like what Human Vibration is doing. I like what these folks who don't have a massive platform, but they're dedicated to truth. They're dedicated to making people think. They're dedicated to something that's a little different. That's different. That's not so mainstream, not so just basic, not so surface level. Um, I love what they're doing. I love what all of these folks are doing. You know, I'll let you get to individuals, but
Oh, I've still got a few rapid fires for you.
yeah, go ahead.
Any documentaries that immediately come to mind?
Well, I think the first documentary, Fahrenheit 9/11, changed everything for me because that was around the time where I first,
And talk about controlled opposition, right? That's
yeah,
Michael Moore, right?
but
There's a
so
lot of
what?
truth.
Because
There's a
there was
lot of
truth
truth
in
nuggets in it.
most of everything that motherfucker was talking about with that. So now, you know, that's a great example right there. You know that I brought up and that you're bringing up. It's like controlled opposition, okay, but you know what? He's putting it out here, and maybe they're letting him put it out here. That's fine. Well, guess what? Power to the person that's got the balls to weather the storm, because but Fahrenheit was the start of me first saying, yo, the powers that be, they got some other shit going on out here.
Right.
So flowers to Moore, flowers to all of them. It doesn't make controlled op or not, bro. It started it started an awakening for a lot of people that have led a lot of people 10, 15, 20 years later to be in a position to not be so conformed. So shout out. Any documentaries, not that comes to mind. I mean,
If
I
it
know
doesn't
that
immediately come to mind, don't worry about it. I don't have but a few of some of them, some of these categories. What about artists like that outside of music?
music, artists, actors, I'm gonna loop them all in.
Yeah, any of that.
Well, flowers for my brother Denzel. Denzel Washington is one of the few people that I look at and I can tell like he knows everything that's going on, but I feel like he somehow probably is able to maneuver through a lot of it. And I don't think many, I don't know, but he has such a pure
He's
spirit
smooth.
though. He's smooth. And
He's
maybe,
a smooth
Obama,
cat.
hey, and that could be dangerous too, because Obama was smooth too,
Smooth
all
cat
right?
too, yeah. No
So,
kidding.
but there's something way more authentic about Denzel. I think that's a little different. I mean, listen, I know it kind of goes
Yeah,
against what I was saying.
could be. Look, to appease all of the skeptics and cynics out there, anybody could be controlled op. I could be controlled op.
I could be too.
I don't even know. And the world is so fucking crazy. I could be fucking Manchurian candidate chipped. I don't know. I'm just trying to keep it real. I don't know.
An interesting movie he did.
Yeah, that's why I thought about. That's why I was connecting the dots. But yes. Anyhow, any Twitter accounts you want to shout out?
Human Vibration. I already gave her flowers. I think her work on John Bonet, but more importantly, what it led her to really being able to staple her identity to right now, which is look at all this fake shit that you looking at. To me,
imagery,
one of the most important things next to what Alison McDowell, because now it's crypto and all that is so prevalent.
The metaverse and that blockchain stuff, that's important stuff.
Simultaneously speaking, very important. Right? Very important. Other than that, I think there are a lot of shout out to hip hop out of numbers. I mean, the work that this Australian does to come up with this data is insane. Cool. Shout out to any plant-based blog, because I don't really care if you eat meat. Like, you can still eat meat and still understand plant-based philosophy and say, damn, I can still incorporate all of the other philosophies to whatever I still want to do and still know that you're giving the body a lot of fuel. Shout out to understanding to nutritional blog. Thinking of individual ones, it's always hard to pull. I mean, shout out to Money Twitter. Money Twitter, you got people dedicated to people being able to better in themselves, man, without going and getting in debt with a college degree sometimes, or maybe without doing something, there are a lot of entities. Shout out to Twitter. I mean, because I mean, as censored and
And
controlled as it may be,
shout out to YouTube.
yes, it's
Shout
still
out Facebook.
exactly. It still gives
Shout
us
out Instagram.
opportunities to
You know,
do things that we wouldn't be able to do any other way. It's up to us
right?
to figure out, well, if I've got more truth to tell and I got to be creative with how we do it, hey, guess what? There's another entity being born right now because of that we can use for that reason.
Yep.
Or whatever.
Yep. Books.
Well, I have to obviously shout out one of the books that you gifted me. Gia, you know I draw blanks until you say a word. The Four Agreements, and because these are things that when you read, they touch you and they hit you differently. Shout out to the Encyclopedia of Homeopath and Naopathic Doctors. One of the most important books of human. One of the most important books I feel that are out here that exist today. I mean, this is a 1,200 page book from just about every naopathic and homeopathic doctor in existence that have come together to create this. And it's so insightful for health, nutrition, methods of staying healthy, being healthy out here. Flowers to them. Other books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I mean, any book that makes my dad even look at something differently is making an 84-year-old man look at something, you know what I mean? Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You know, I don't know, man. I mean, this is
if it doesn't come into mind automatically, don't worry about it, because I've only got a few.
Yeah. Anyway, I was about to.
Anyway. And then, what about any drugs? I know cannabis, but anything else? Any rituals or spiritual experiences, meditations? You ever been to like an ashram, anything like that?
No, I definitely want to one day. I want to go to some sort of village. I used to want to go to Dr. Sebi's village, the Ursha village. I don't know how much I trust anything without Sebi still being here, especially with how I feel he died and went out. And some of the things with his family that I just don't. I don't know. I'm not going to speak on it because I don't know. But I know that I don't know if I can. I want to go to something similar to that though. I want to go to some sort of enlightenment journey village where you literally can get oxygen therapy. You literally are eating clean the whole week. You're in healing waters. You're in.
You ever heard of earth ships?
Meditating. Huh?
Have you ever heard of earth ships? Houses that they're building into the earth with recycling water and sewage and all of that. Yeah, okay. You should check out Earth. You should check it out. There's a documentary, here's a short documentary, like a 10-minute one on YouTube. Just type in Earth ships.
Earth ships.
They're pretty awesome. And what I just did, that little tip right there, that's what another thing that I want to incorporate in this show more is, again, we're not primary researchers, but part of the whole, what we're doing right now with the flowers is like, here's some breadcrumbs. If anything hits your ear and you're like, that sounds interesting, go check it out. And I'm gonna put all the links in this. The description on this episode is gonna be full.
Perfect. I'll tell you another one to shout out. Wim Hof. You know, his work.
Good one.
His work on deep breathing and cold baths and cold in general and what it can do for the body is amazing. It's astounding. And listen, it's funny, G, because I've always been a person sometimes where it's like, even if I don't really fully know or understand something, sometimes when you dig into something, sometimes you're like, yo, this makes sense. Like I literally hear what is being said and I'm like, without me even doing my own deep dive yet, wow, this makes
it just hits. It hits.
Sense. Yep. Some stuff just makes sense. I think we overcomplicate most things that when it doesn't really need to have. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated.
If it hits your heart, it hits your soul. That's it. It made sense. It moved you. You know, it impacted you.
And I think that Wim Hof, man, that's another one to shout out to. So just these are some of the people that I'm thinking about that
Any other
that
researchers? That's the last one off the top of your head. Just anything else off the top of your head you want to give flowers to that you haven't already said?
I want to give flowers to the internet because
That's a
through all the
good one.
deception, through all the
That's a good one.
deception, through all the lies, through all the CDCs and the Fauci's and all the bullshit, it's really not that hard, people, to just go and do your own research. So shout out to the internet. All right.
Yep. Shout out the internet.
Yeah, seriously, man. I mean, some of this stuff is like, yo, why are we still even considering this a theory, a conspiracy theory at this point?
Yep.
But anyway,